U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Since Xi Jinping became China's leader 11 years ago, he's made one repeated pledge
Someone should
to
have
fight any challenges to China.
One-sided. Host is one-sided.
I didn't say that. That never came out. Whoops.
China's sovereignty. A sovereignty enforced, say analysts,
It's called
by
Red
intimidating
Square,
Taiwan,
right?
claiming ownership of almost all the South China Sea, and establishing a security presence in the South Pacific, where China now has the largest diplomatic presence in the region.
While Wang
Wrong
Yi has
rifles
been
for
talking
what
up trade in
what mission you
Australasia,
got there,
his
pal.
US counterpart, Anthony Blinken, has been deepening alliances with old allies, South Korea and the Philippines. Many smaller nations in the region, though, are wary of both the United States and China and don't want to be forced to pick sides in what analysts say could be the beginning of a new Cold
What a
War.
revelation.
Adrian Brown.
This is China's new security aspects, by the way. Water cannons.
The Philippine fucking boats can't get a break. You know, they in their own waters they're getting cummed on. Other waters they're getting seized by Houthis.
Yeah, they can't
Didn't they
catch a
claim
break.
Indian land? The Chinese? Yes, they have. There's the border's contested as well as Kashmir. It's contested by all three states. But yeah, they're they actually the Chinese beat to death a bunch of Indian guys with rebar clubs because it's a demilitarized zone. So they just carry fucking medieval maces to beat each other with. And they beat these guys to death and threw them off the mountain. And then Jared went to fix it.
Yay, Jared.
Yeah, they sent Jared. And he fixed it.
Mr. Kushner, all of this must have a cost.
He said it never happened. He said the Holocaust never happened.
Thank you, Jared Kushner.
China's Coast Guard fired water cannons at Philippine ships in disputed waters of the South China Sea on Saturday. Actions the Philippines called irresponsible and provocative.
Whale
Video
Wars.
released by the
I love this
Philippines
show.
shows a civilian supply vessel being doused by water cannons, which the country's task force on the South China Sea said
They're
caused
going to crash
significant
into them
damage
too.
and injury to personnel on the boat. The civilian vessel was hired to resupply a small number of Filipino troops.
The Philippines should outfit their fishing vessels with massive metal spikes and ram the Chinese ships. Sink them.
Stationed on a grounded ship, the Philippines used...
Go, hey, Ukraine, can we have some of those sea boats?
Oh, they're talking about the grounded ship that they crashed in there to lay claim to the island,
Yeah,
which
like
is the
20
funniest
fucking
way
years
to
ago.
lay claim to an
Hilarious.
island. This is
Yeah,
like
and they
such
have
a
a
Fallout
military
thing, you
detachment
know?
there. Yeah.
Like a ship that's crashed, and that's where the military is based out of.
Yeah. Like they literally have a marine detachment on the ship to claim the
That's what they're
land that
talking
is
about.
literally in their EEZ.
uses to reinforce its sovereignty claims. It was being escorted by 2 Navy ships and 2 Coast Guard vessels, the Philippine military said. The Philippine Coast Guard said one of its Coast Guard vessels was also impeded and encircled by a Chinese Coast Guard ship and 2 Chinese maritime militia vessels. China claims almost the entire South China Sea, including the Second Thomas Shoal, which
It's
is
so
within the
funny what
Philippines'
they do to like not invoke a war. It's like, oh, we're gonna deliberately block you and encircle your fucking ships and be a dick to you. Like to order something so childish, you know?
Yeah. Like this just goes back to what I was saying before about Australia. To bend the knee and look so pathetic to a country this childish is just pathetic. Like, honestly pathetic. You would have a better shot going to the Philippines and saying, hey, we'll send some of our patrol boats out there to help you guys.
You'd have a better shot putting a child to deal with diplomacy in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, that did happen. It worked out well.
Send in Jared! J-Man!
200-mile exclusive economic zone. A 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration found that China's sweeping claims have no legal basis. China's Coast Guard said the Philippine vessels ignored repeated warnings and forced their way in. It says all responsibility for the incident lies with the Philippines.
What do you mean? The water borders don't
South China
enforce
Sea Task
themselves?
Force said the country will not be deterred by veiled threats or hostility.
The threat has grown.
The U.S. has weighed in. It constantly points to Article 5 of the Mutual Defense Agreement, which was signed in 1951. It now says that it now extends to all armed conflicts, armed attacks in any area of the South China Sea. In practice, what exactly does that mean?
That an incursion, for example, to occupy, which has already happened, but we're still trying to keep it peaceful. But you see, we avoid, as I said, we think about peace in the national interest. It does not serve any purpose to heighten tensions, to say, okay, I am invoking now the Mutual Defense Treaty. And that I don't think anyone wants that, unless you asked a very difficult question here.
Whoa, hang on. Unless start a war with China, nobody wants that. Unless
the effects are such that it is a threat. It will become an existential threat to the country. Then,
do you have any episodes with Lena? I've been trying to get Lena to come on forever.
That would.
She's too shy. I reference her. I talk about her all the time. She's also hilarious. She does these threads like politicians if they were garbage cans and stuff like that, but she'll also do it with jihadi groups and like what cocktails they'll be and stuff. She's fucking hysterical, but she won't. She refuses. I literally have like tried to pressure her into it, like like not like over the line. Oh, like you're doing this, okay? Still nothing.
Trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty, the agreement between the United States and the Philippines.
How confident are you about U.S. support? How far do you think the U.S. would go
to
support the Philippines?
All right, let's just keep moving.
Oh, well, hang on. I want to hear what he says at that. That's a good question. What will the U.S. do to support them
in the South China Sea?
Well, thus far, we can say that the United States has been certainly very supportive in every way, and it has.
This is Bong Bong, right?
Yeah.
The United States has really shown that it takes very seriously these agreements that we have, and so, but it is dangerous for one to think in terms of when something goes wrong, we'll run to Big Brother. That's not the way we treat it at all.
We can move on.
We do
Great
this
answer.
for ourselves.
Great answer. This is our country. This is we're not a puppet of the United States.
Let's turn our attention away from markets. Let's go to South China Sea, of course, a flashpoint.
I'll be back. I'm just going to leave this running, but I'll turn it down so you can talk over it if you need.
I mean, I can always take over.
Increasingly so for tensions in the Asia Pacific. Here,
it's the one that you sent, and the one that I was going to go to after this was
increasingly
this one.
So for tensions in the Asia Pacific here. So you have countries, and here's a fantastic map here for you, including, well, you have China, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam all have, as you can see, overlapping claims in this massive waterway. Beijing, though, has claimed nearly all of it. Resource-rich region here, including, of course, parts that Manila of the Philippines asserts that it actually belongs in an exclusive economic zone. So if you've missed the news recently, you've seen Chinese, well, just in case, Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard vessels have actually collided at least twice since October. The Philippine Coast Guard says a clash in early March actually left 4 people injured. That happened off this disputed second Thomas Shoal, which is acclaimed not just by 2 countries, by several nations as well. But it isn't just Manila and Beijing locking horns. Last year, if you recall, the U.S. military accused.
You're trying to figure out what she used to do as a job. She just says private security. Well, private security is, it's a lot of things. That means like mercenary, though, when people say private security.
A Chinese fighter jet of coming in so close.
coming. The Chinese fighter jet, they edged it.
To an American bomber over that area that it nearly collided and caused a mid-air accident. The U.S. estimates that South China Sea holds trillions of dollars of offshore oil and gas. It's home to some of the world's richest.
I just want to point out that he said multiple countries. It's more than multiple countries. The South China Sea is literally split between like 9 to 10 to possibly 12 different countries. The South Thomas Shoal, or whatever the fuck it's called, I can't remember exactly its name, Thomas Shoal or something like that, is contested by about 6 different countries because it spreads over about 6 of their EEZs. So it's a lot more complicated than people say and how he made it sound. It's very complex. I mean, the map is literally on the screen at the start.
Ground and also a major trade route. Washington also estimates that a waterway carries some $3 trillion worth of goods annually, which actually works out to be, get this, 1/3 of global trade. All that in mind and all that at stake, let's bring in Linda Amin. She spoke exclusively, of course, the Philippine president, Bongbong Marcos. How was the conversation?
Well, it went really well. He was pretty frank in his comments. You talked about how there's been rising tensions in the South China Sea. And according to Marcos, China has been pretty aggressive, forcing the hand of the Philippines, forcing the Philippines to respond in a bigger way. And that's not because Philippines wants to provoke China. It is about national security, national sovereignty. So he has to make the moves. The moves have been more visible. The Philippines has been more vocal. Intentionally, it is about his people, he says. But you know what? He says in the end, he does not want war. He wants peace. He wants relations to go back to an even keel, his words. And he also said that he does not want to poke the bear. So you come away thinking he wants to bring down the temperature. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The threat has grown. And since the threat has grown, we must do more to defend our territory. And so maybe perhaps that's what people are seeing is that a more robust defense of our territorial rights as recognized by the international community through international law, through the UNCLOS. And we hew very close to that. We do not leave very. We have not instigated any kind of conflict. We have not instigated any kind of confrontation.
The U.S. has weighed in. It constantly points to Article 5 of the Mutual Defense Agreement.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the United States stands by its commitment to defend the Philippines against armed attack in the South China Sea. Blinken is in Manila, where he's been meeting with the Philippines foreign minister. Tension has been rising with China over disputed waters in the South China Sea.
These waterways are critical to the Philippines, to its security, to its economy, but they're also critical to the interests of the region, the United States, and the world.
I love how flat out they're just saying it. Like the water is critical to the interest of the United States. Like he just said it flat out.
World. It's why we stand with the Philippines and stand by our ironclad defense commitments, including under the Mutual Defense Treaty. Article 4 extends to armed attacks on the Filipino Armed Forces, public vessels, aircraft, including those of its Coast Guard, anywhere in the South China Sea.
Okay, well, Barnaby Lowe is live for us in Manila, and we heard a little bit there about what Blinken had to say, but did he also go into a little bit more how the United States will defend the Philippines from China's increasing aggression in the South China Sea?
Bombs!
Well, Tom, both U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo made clear that only unarmed attack by China or any third country in the South China Sea or elsewhere would trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty between the United States and the Philippines, wherein the United States could come to the rescue and act militarily on behalf of the Philippines. But that's not what's happening in the South China Sea right now. Analysts say that what China has been deploying are what's known as gray zone tactics. For example, military-grade laser, the use of water cannon. And so short of activating the Mutual Defense Treaty, Secretary Blinken said that the United States has been helping the Philippines shore up its defense capabilities. And in fact, the Philippines is the biggest recipient of military assistance by the United States in the Indo-Pacific region, amounting to about $1.14 billion worth of warplanes, for example, and military equipment from 2015 to 2022. And there's more to come in the form of drones and air and coastal defense systems in the future. Now, Secretary Blinken also said that the U.S. has consistently condemned what it views as harassment by the Chinese Coast Guard of Philippine Coast Guard vessels in the South China Sea. And to that end, Secretary Blinken said that the United States has been building bigger alliances that include the Philippines. And these countries that are within these alliances, they've also condemned the actions by China in the South China Sea. Tom?
And Barnaby, the White House has just announced a summit next month between leaders of the US, Japan and the Philippines. What more do we know about that meeting in Washington?
Well, both secretaries did not provide many details about the trilateral summit that's happening in Washington, D.C. Of course, we know that's happening next month on April 11th, and that will be between the leaders of the U.S., the Philippines, and Japan. But what Secretary Blinken did say is that this trilateral summit has been a long time coming because the U.S. and Japan, the U.S. and the Philippines and Japan have been building their relationships separately. President Marcos, since he became president in 2022, has met with U.S. President Joe Biden three times. And Marcos has also been to Japan to meet with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Kishida was here just last year. He addressed Philippine
China on Wednesday launched a satellite bound for the dark side of the moon. It's meant to be a signal relay, a communications bridge for an upcoming mission, and marks a new phase in Beijing's long-term lunar exploration program. Data transfers from the far side of the moon are impossible as there is no direct line of sight. The new satellite Qiaqiao-2 will orbit the moon and relay signals between Earth and a robotic mission to the moon's hidden side that is set for May. The mission aims include retrieving samples from an ancient basin. If successfully obtained, they would be the first lunar material acquired from the far side of the moon. By 2040, Beijing envisions Qiaqiao-2 will be part of a constellation of relay satellites. The constellation would support China's research station planned for the moon's south pole, as well as host communications for eventual crewed lunar missions or exploration on other planets like Mars and Venus.
Dick rocket.
Their rocket literally looks like a bunch of plumbing supplies from Home Depot.
Security.
Dick rocket.
That comes. Chinese military and state-run media have accused the US of threatening
Yeah.
That comes days after Reuters reported Elon Musk's SpaceX was building hundreds of spy satellites for a US intelligence agency. SpaceX's Starshield unit is developing the satellite network under a classified $1.8 billion contract with the National
Take it away from him.
Office, or NRO. That's according to a report released on Friday by Reuters, citing 5 sources familiar with the program.
Oh, I fucking hate
The
that
social
term.
media account run by the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, said the SpaceX program exposed US...
You hate what?
That term.
What term?
Familiar with the source? Familiar with the
shamelessness and double standards. Washington has accused Chinese tech companies of threatening US security. The editor of a magazine overseen by the ruling Communist Party was also quoted in the Global Times as saying the satellite project posed a challenge to global security and stability. Another company run by Musk, EV maker Tesla, has a large manufacturing presence in China. Neither the PLA-run social media account or the Global Times mentioned Musk or Tesla.
Wouldn't it be
In
funny if he
response
goes
to the Reuters story,
China
the
and they
NRO
arrest him on the
acknowledged its
national
mission to
security law
develop
because he's doing
space-based
bad
surveillance
business?
systems. but it declined
What?
to comment
Mute
on the
it.
extent of
Pause it.
SpaceX's involvement.
I said, wouldn't it be funny if he went to China and they arrested him because he's doing business with foreign enemies?
That would be funny, actually.
The world's largest satellite operator also didn't respond to several requests for comment about the contract. China has said it also plans to start building its own satellite constellations. SpaceX, NRO, and the Pentagon did not immediately respond to requests for comment on China's reaction to the contract.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?